Hello, my name is Jack Ryan. I'd like to do a quick little presentation about money management. I'm thinking mainly for my son. He's 18, he's just starting his life, and I want to make sure that he, he knows how to make some better decisions about money. It's not about being rich, it's just about being responsible with your money. These are some topics I'm going to cover: helpful resources, budget, bank accounts, credit cards, planning, journaling, tracking your spending, tools, and retirement accounts. These are some topics that I've kind of done some research on myself. I'm not an expert, not a financial analyst, just some hard lessons that I've learned. Some resources that I really appreciated. I like the Richest Man in Babylon book. I really liked it because it had some pretty timeless messages about how to handle money, how to save money. I like the rules of thumb of 10% to savings every single paycheck. Every time you get a paycheck, you put 10% in savings. Make your money grow. And then, make your money grow is the principle of making your money make money for you. That's a very interesting and good principle. And the last principle was maybe the last one that I remember. There were several, but make sure you get good financial advice from experts. This is not meant to be a deep dive into money management. It's just some lessons that I learned. But maybe if you want to do some more research, I'd encourage you to do that. Another series that I like is the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. I like it because it gives you some insight in some different ways of thinking about money and thinking about risk. Be careful though, there's a multi-level marketing kind of scheme in there, and I would avoid that. Where else can you get advice? Well, you can ask your bank what kind of products they offer, things like that. If you have friends that are CPAs or in the financial industry, it wouldn't be bad to kind of run things by them, test things, if you're curious about what's the going interest rate and things like that. Does this sound reasonable or not? You can always call me. I'd be happy to hear from you, Jacob. And one last thing about advice is be careful who you get advice from, or just don't take everything at face value. There's everything from the people who want you to hide your money under a mattress to people that want you to put all your money in some get-rich-quick scheme. Just make sure you do your research and don't just jump in without really doing some background. One of the most basic tools of managing your money is creating a budget. A budget is simply a way of accounting for every single dollar that you spend and then checking it against the money that you bring in. If you bring in more than you spend, you have a positive cash flow, and that's good. If you spend more than you bring in, you have a negative cash flow, and you can't sustain that. So you need to find a way to address that. Either cut your budget or earn more money, get a second job, something like that. Some common budget categories are rent, mortgage, insurance, utilities, dues, repayments. These are common because they're just basic things in life. You're going to need all these things at one point in life, and it's a good idea to have a budget line for them. Some other spending that you might do is for gifts and tithing. Tithing is 10% of your income, so that's not difficult to plan. Gifts, you would just basically the way I do it is number of people in my life I'm going to give gifts to, average number of dollars I'm going to spend, and then normalize that out to a monthly amount. And then some spending that you have some control over, but it's difficult to plan, is things like entertainment, gas for your car, and groceries. The reason I think these are difficult to plan is because entertainment is kind of a spontaneous thing. It's never the same from month to month. If it was, it'd be boring and it wouldn't be entertaining. Some months you'll be driving more than others, and some months you'll have guests. Might need more groceries. It's just one of those things. But it's a good idea to keep your eye on it, because if you're not watching these things at all, you could end up really jeopardizing your financial stability. So watch out for this. Plan your spending every month and compare it to your paycheck. Make sure you don't overspend. Alright, so here's a fun little part of the presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about bank accounts. And why? Well, let's look at 3 factors in life. You're going to make money so you can have fun, and then you'll have to pay bills. That's just the way things are. Okay, so what most people do is they get a checking account, deposit their check into their checking account, and that's how they pay for their fun and their bills, right? If this is as far as you go, you're not doing too well. This is not really a very responsible way to handle your money, in my opinion. The reason is because picture a scenario where you're at home, maybe it's a couple days after payday, and it's the beginning of the month, and your friend calls you and, hey, let's go to the beach. And you look in your checking account right away, and I think I got enough money. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, let's go. So you go, and then you come back, and the bills start coming in, and lo and behold, you estimated incorrectly because you didn't spend very much time estimating it. You didn't really compare how much you'd spend in entertainment for this month to your current balance or anything. So what happens? You end up not having enough to pay your bills. Okay, so when you get in this situation, then you can pay your bill late, or you're going to pay a fee for that, or you can try and float a check. Now, writing hot checks is illegal, but a lot of times people will rationalize it by saying, well, the check won't get there till Tuesday, and I should be paid by then. So yeah, I'll just try and stretch this out. And what happens is unexpectedly the check comes in a little sooner than expected, or the paycheck gets delayed a little bit, and you bounce a check. Well, you bounce a check, now you're paying a fee to the person you wrote the check to. You got to pay another fee to the bank. The point is that when you get into these habits, these fees begin to eat you alive, and they really mess up your budget. If you think you didn't have enough money for your budget before, why do you have to start paying extra hundreds of dollars to banks and other fees? And just don't make bouncing checks a habit, because you can actually get arrested for that, and then you're paying for a lawyer, and you may lose your job. So watch out for that stuff. So what is a better way of handling this? Well, this is sort of a method that I learned and I really like. Get yourself a second checking account. Call it a billing account. Okay? And every time you get paid, you put a little money into that account. How much money are you going to put into that account? Well, if you've done your budget, you know exactly how much money you're going to put in your billing account per paycheck. You can calculate it. So then before you do anything else, put your bill money off in that billing account. Now you can use your checking account for entertainment. And now, picture that same scenario. You got paid a couple days ago, and you're sitting at home, and your friend Joe calls you, and, hey, let's go to the beach. And you look at your checking account, and you see plenty of money in there, and you say, yeah, let's go. You can do that because you know that none of that money is earmarked for bills. You don't have to sit down and calculate anything. So, you've already done it when you did your budget. So that's a better way of handling this. Now, let's say Joe calls you and you look in your checking account and there's $10 in it, but your billing account has $1,000 in it. Well, it might be tempting to take that money out of the billing account, but don't do it. Remember, all that money in the billing account is earmarked for your bills. So don't invade that. Okay, just tell Joe, hey, I only got $10, can't go, sorry. And there you go. All right, so if you get this far, you're doing pretty good. This is a good step. We can go a little further though. Let's think about another scenario. What if we have a car wreck? Or what if we have a hospital stay? Let's create a savings account for emergencies. If we have this savings account for emergencies, we can pay for those unexpected bills. Right? We can also have this savings account for emergencies back up our billing account. So what I mean by that is a lot of banks have a tool they call overdraft protection. What this is they pair a savings account with a checking account, and if you accidentally write a check out of your billing account that's more than you have, then it'll automatically withdraw the money from your savings account, and then you won't bounce the check and you won't have to pay it late. Alright, wait a minute. How are we going to build this emergency fund, and how much money should be in it? my rule of thumb, and I can't remember where I got this, but there should be enough money in this emergency fund to pay all your bills and maybe a little bit of fun for 6 months in the event that you lose your job, right? In the event that your paycheck goes away, you should be able to live off your savings, your emergency fund for 6 months. Now, that's a rule of thumb. You could have used 12 months, you could use 2 years, um, and honestly, you could have gone lower if as you're building it up. You can make lower, like 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, little intermediate goals. But I think 6 months is probably a better thing to go for. Okay, so now that you know that you're going to pay it off, you want 6 months in there. You figure out how much that is, and then you decide how fast you're going to pay it off. What can you afford? Can you afford $100 a month, $1,000 a month, $500 a month? Whatever it is, you pick that number and you start feeding that emergency fund. And when it gets up to 6 months, you can stop. Now, if you have to use it, you may have to contribute and top it off again. But as soon as you get it topped off, you can stop again. Alright, so if you've gotten this far, you're doing really good. Okay? Now you can cover not just you can spend money on fun when you have a good measure for that, but you also have an emergency fund so that if something out of the blue happens, you can handle that without blinking. What else could we do? Well, think about those impulse buys, right? You're walking down the street, you pass a camera store, you see a camera that you just gotta have. You want to buy it, but if you buy it from your entertainment account, then that means no fun for a long time. So what can we do? Maybe we could put it on a credit card, but if you put it on a credit card, now you got to pay that back, right? And you generally probably have to pay it back in a month unless you're going to get some sort of 0% thing, and maybe the store will have a 0% thing. You never know. Maybe that's an option, but wouldn't it be nice if you had a little savings account just for hope, right? We call it a hope fund. We're going to take a little bit of money from each check, and we're going to put it in this hope fund. How do you budget for this? Well, my budget for this is to go ahead and plan a vacation. Not plan it like order the tickets and make the reservations, but just sort of loosely estimate $4,000 a year for a vacation. That's a pretty decent vacation, right? So $4,000 a year, you can calculate what that is per check, and every check you put a little bit of money in that hope fund. Now you're walking by the camera store, you see that camera, and you see that, and if you think you want it, you can make a decision then. Do I want to take it out of my hope fund or not? Maybe this pushes back my vacation a little bit. Maybe it compromises my vacation a little bit. But these are things you can decide as you're deciding to buy that camera. Now, once you're here, you're doing great. This is my system right now, and it's working pretty good. I hope this works for you. Let's talk a little bit about credit cards. Credit cards have a purpose. Remember that camera? Sometimes stores have a 0% interest for 6 months or 0% interest for 12 months. Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, they all do this sometimes. Remember though, you have to pay it off in that time period or you're going to get punished. Some of these stores will actually accrue the interest, and if you don't pay it off on time, they'll add all that accrued deferred interest back in. So effectively, you'll have paid that interest for that entire period. So don't take advantage of these 0% offers unless you can truly pay them off in the time period. You can use this also if you get a little behind in bills. If you need a 0%, you maybe get a quick loan or maybe pay off some other debts. This is a good way to pay it down. But don't use this to kind of stretch debt out indefinitely, because this can get out of control, and it's not a good habit to get into. I would maybe keep only one or two of these around at a time. Another great use for a credit card is one credit card per bucket. So you remember the entertainment and the groceries and the gasoline. I have one card for each of those budget items, and that's how I manage those accounts. When I want to see how much money I've spent this month On my gasoline, I can look at the balance on that one card and it tells me everything I need to know. So that they're really useful for that. You're going to have to pay for this anyway. You've budgeted for it anyway. You're going to pay it every single month anyway. So you might as well route it through a credit card, and maybe you can get some reward points or some discounts. What about your credit score? How does this affect your credit score? Okay, so what is a credit score, first of all? A credit score is basically a grade that you get based on how well you manage your money. If you take out a lot of credit cards and you buy a lot of stuff and you don't pay it back, you're going to have a horrible credit score. But if you have a few credit cards, maybe even a bunch, and you make sure that the balances are never maxed out, you make sure that you pay everything on time, you never accrue any interest, well, that's good money management, and that'll actually help your credit score. Your credit score will go up if you do that. So this is a great way to help your credit score. Let's talk about some improper uses of credit cards. Don't ever incur debt you don't plan to pay off, and don't buy things you can't afford. You see that $5,000 mountain bike and you think, oh, I gotta have it, and you maybe try and rationalize it a dozen different ways, but if you're not making very much money and you don't have enough money to pay that off in a year, it's probably a bad move. So maybe pass it up. Maybe work on your Hope Fund, and then maybe your Hope Fund can get you a good down payment, and you can finance the rest over 12 months for 0% interest. That might be a better way of buying that mountain bike. Don't ever incur an interest rate greater than 3% on a credit card. I picked 3% because a lot of times the rollover fee for a credit card is 3%. But regardless, if you're paying more than 3%, or really if you're paying more than 3% or you're paying a heavy amount of interest, you're doing something wrong. These cards will, if your little time period expires for your 0% interest introductory fee, or if you carry a balance for more than a month, some of these cards can go up to 21%. And believe me, just like the fees that are charged when you're late, or the fees that your bank charges when you bounce checks, these things can grow, and they can really ruin your financial stability. So watch out. Don't get into that habit. I think if you get a car, this is 2015, if you get a car these days, you can probably pay an interest rate around 3 or 4%. If you buy a house, it's like maybe 3, 4, or 5%, somewhere in that range. So, and you can ask your friends and neighbors, what's a reasonable amount of interest that I should pay? You might be able to find that out. Always, when you're getting a credit card, examine the terms and conditions. Make sure there's no hidden fees. Make sure that there's no hidden interest rates. Maybe check the closing date and the pay due date, those kinds of things. That won't be in the terms and conditions, but be aware of it, because you really want to make sure that you don't pick up a lot of interest debt. I really like the idea of planning. Think of this, if you do your budget today, it's real easy, but what happens when you pay off that car? Or what happens when you complete your emergency fund? Your budget's going to change. Well, don't just ignore that, because what happens is your budget becomes stale, right? So have a plan for how you're going to modify your budget when you pass certain milestones in your little life, whenever you pay off something. Okay? Track your spending. You don't have to track everything. I would suggest tracking entertainment, groceries, and gasoline. Of those, entertainment is the most volatile. It's one of those impulse kind of things, so you really got to watch that one. I watch that one every single day. I like watching groceries and gasoline too, just so I can be aware of how my budget for those is working out. Groceries is another area where you have a tendency to sort of exceed in spending. I like the idea of keeping a journal as well. Keeping a journal with your finances can help you remember why you made certain decisions. Why did I decide to concentrate on debt? Why did I decide to concentrate on my emergency fund? Why did I decide to concentrate on something else? Why did I buy that new car? How did I find my interest rate? Who did I ask? Why did I go over budget that day? What am I going to do to fix it? What am I going to do to recover from this unexpected expense? You can put notes in there about forces that are maybe affecting the way you spend, like a new girlfriend or birthdays. These notes can help you uncover trends in your spending. Maybe you find out that in August you spend more money. Why? Well, because it's my mom's birthday and I got to go drive to see her, or I got to buy her a gift or take her out to dinner, right? These notes can help you refine your plan. They can help you sort of fix your budget and make it better. A budget is something, it's like a painting. It's almost never done. You got to keep going over it. So what are some tools that can help me keep up with all this? Well, I really like Excel because it gives you the freedom to sort of change your calculations and do your own calculations, and it doesn't restrict you very much. So I really like Excel for sort of doing my plan, my journal, my budget, all kinds of things. I put in a worksheet for studying my emergency fund, etc. So I really like Excel for the freedom that it gives me. But I like Quicken too. Quicken is great because it can sync with your bank accounts, and you can stick your budget in there, and you can open the calendar view and then just page through and look at your accounts and make sure that you calculated correctly in Excel, and make sure you didn't make any mistakes. Another great tool may be your bank's website. There may be budgeting tools there. There may be reconciliation tools there. There'll certainly be documents there you can use. Statements from time to time are useful. Maybe they have what my bank has, and USA has a web bill pay that's free to its members. I absolutely love this tool. Web bill pay allows me to sit down once a month and pay all my bills. I don't have to pay them all that day. I can schedule them. I can schedule them to go out next week, or the 15th, or the 20th. I can make some of them recurring. If the amount never changes, I just make it recurring. Alright, so that's a great way to manage your money. Last thing I'm going to talk about is retirement accounts. I'm not an expert here. I'm not going to try and give you super in-depth retirement advice, but I want you to be aware of some of the vehicles there are out there for retirement. And we're talking about private vehicles, not Social Security. If Social Security is around when you retire, that's just fine. That's great. I hope it is, but they're saying it won't be around when I retire, so I don't know. Let's say, so the two kinds of accounts I have here is a Roth IRA and a 401k loan. I'm going to talk about the 401k loan first. A 401k is sort of a retirement tool that a lot of employers offer. What it is if you sign up for your 401k and you start depositing into it, then they take that money, that contribution that you want to make to your 401k, they take it out of your check before the government taxes it. So this is a pre-tax investment. Okay, don't worry, the government is going to tax everything eventually, but when you put money into your 401k, say you make $80,000, if you put $10,000 a year into your 401k, the government is only going to tax you for $70,000. The rest of that $10,000 goes into your account untaxed. When will it be taxed? Well, it'll be taxed when you withdraw it. Here's the thing about pre versus post-tax money. If you made, let's say you made $80,000 when you put the money in, and then when you retire, maybe you truly retire, you're just completely living off your investments, and you find a way to live on $70,000 a year. That includes the money you pull out from the 401k. Well, if that's true, then you won, because assuming the tax rate didn't change, you're being taxed at a lower rate for that money. So that's a win. But what if you're $70,000 when you put it in, and then before you retire, your investments do much better than you think, and you're pulling in $100,000 a year just on investments? Well, now when you pull that money out of the 401k, you're going to be taxed on that money as if it was made when you made $100,000 plus. So you're going to be taxed more on that money. Again, assuming the interest rate doesn't change. The interest rate is a whole other factor. The interest rate could go up. You don't know. But this is sort of the game that you play when you're trying to decide whether to use pre-tax money to invest or post-tax money to invest. What's the post-tax option? It's the Roth. So basically, when you get paid $80,000, you get taxed on the full 80, and you take maybe $5,000 and you stick it into your Roth, and you do that every year, and it goes in there and it makes more money. Now, if you have an absolute emergency, You could pull your contributions out without paying taxes, but if you start pulling out your gains, you'll be taxed on that. So watch out for that. Okay, that's my presentation. I hope you got something out of it. It wasn't meant to be an complete financial tutorial, just pretty much just passing along some lessons that I learned. I hope you get something out of it, Jacob, and I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.